Hey there, it's Nick Terzo, and this is the Radical Podcast. No, we won't be overthrowing any governments, but we will be learning from radical creatives who rule the world. Hello, Radical Society. I want to start the podcast since I think this is podcast number 8. I wanted to thank everyone who's taken the time to subscribe and rate this podcast. It has meant the world to me that in these early days, folks have been so incredibly supportive, sending me nice messages and sharing this podcast amongst their friends and communities on social media. And if you have not, I humbly, or more like shamelessly, ask you to please subscribe and rate our show wherever you get your podcasts. I've decided to call the next couple of months of shows Legends of the Fall. We have quite a lineup coming up. And the first of these would be this week's. And my guest, who totally fits the word legend, is Mr. John Doe. I can't contain how excited I am to have this conversation. Not only is he one of the biggest influences in punk music, and ridiculously talented, but he has a heart of gold and is just the very best of human beings. John's work as a founder of the legendary band X is carried on for 4 decades. Their current album, Alphabet Land, has been critically hailed and is chock full of amazing songs, great lyrics, and amazing musicianship. John has recorded 7 albums with his band X, in addition to several solo records and contributions to other bands like the Knitters. And if this is not quite enough, he is also a very credible actor, having appeared in dozens of films such as Roadhouse and Boogie Nights, and TV shows such as Roswell. The 2 critically acclaimed books he co-authored, Under the Big Black Sun and More Fun in the New World, provide a first-person view of the burgeoning LA punk scene in the 1980s. Coming up, this is a good one, folks, my talk with the incredible John Doe. Hey, John.
Nick.
How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. How about you?
I'm good. It's only been a decade and a half or so, just underneath that since I spoke to you.
Really?
I think so. It was, about 2008 or so probably was the last time.
Seems like yesterday.
Yes. How is your quarantine?
Oh, it's lovely. I couldn't ask for, I remind myself how grateful I am that I've got a beautiful partner who helps me out. I've got a cute little house. I got money in the bank. X has been very good to me in the last 10 years. So I can't complain. It's just, I hope that people who have a small amount of empathy before this, that it increases, because kind of it's up and down like a roller coaster, and you can do that in like the first 4 hours of your day. So to remind
Right.
yourself and everybody else that that's what's happening, then yeah, then you're going to be okay, I hope.
Right. And you're now kind of in the music capital of Texas. And you're seeing the impacts right on down there on the clubs and the live. And in your own, weren't you doing a tour this year for the anniversary or not? Or just a straight out tour to support Alphabet Land?
We have, we tour all kinds of different ways. Sometimes, this year was going to be just for Alphabet Land, and of course, to celebrate the 40th anniversary of Los Angeles, the LP. But yeah, I was hopeful in April that we would get back to work in August or September. We still had a few things on the books, and we were trying to keep them alive. The worst thing is, or not worst thing, but the most impactful thing is I have several friends like Steve Wertheimer, who runs the Continental Club, and Sea Boys, and he's okay, but we did a live broadcast there for Hardly Strictly Bluegrass, the San Francisco Golden Gate Bridge or Golden Gate Park concert, and we did it at the Continental, and everyone was socially distant, and being careful, and you had to have a nasal swab that they sent you and all this kind of stuff. But Steve was really emotional, and just going back in there and having music. Another friend, Will Tanner, who runs the Hole in the Wall across from UT,
Yep,
and
yep.
he and I are partners in another bar called the Long Play Lounge, and we reopened for maybe 3 weeks, 2.5 weeks, and then shut down again. We have some outdoor space, and it's just all the bartenders, all the musicians who have weekly gigs, all those sorts of things. That's who is really suffering.
Yeah, these supports, same down here in Nashville. Obviously, the support staffs are just kind of decimated.
Yeah, it's fucked up, man. And hopefully there's something in Congress. Hopefully that'll pass, and they'll get some additional help. And everyone's applied for unemployment, and everyone's applied for PPP loans and junk like that. So people are hanging in, but it's going to be a whole different world once the wor- the world comes back, whatever that is going to be.
Right. I mean, are your team of people, your agents, I mean, are they putting out markers saying, "Well, we think by next summer you can book a tour again," or
Not really, no.
no?
Luckily, I've done some Facebook concerts. I got included into Willie Nelson's Fourth of July picnic,
Oh,
and
awesome.
hardly strictly bluegrass. But it was, you kind of. I went out to Willie's place in Spicewood, uh, and they had the saloon set up, and it was the same sort of thing. You got temperature taken when you walked in, and there was a film crew, but they were all very careful. And but most of the people did it virtual. Did it in their bedrooms or in their, you know. Yeah, it was weird, but I wish they were putting out markers, because then it's something to shoot for.
Right. I mean, does this give you the, let's say, the focus or the, the non-distraction to be able to do writing and recording that you wanted to do? Or do you feel like, hey, we already did that. We did Alphabet Land and it turned out really well.
Yeah. Well, I've been writing some songs for a solo record. Um, but recording, I don't do home recording. I don't have a
Okay.
home recording setup, and I like the process of getting a batch of songs together and going in and making a record of what happened. Yeah, I'm getting pretty close though to having a full record worth of songs, new songs.
That's awesome. I mean, and how, like, you've done, I mean, what have you done? Like a dozen solo records? How many solo records have you done?
I think 10, and then two collaborations with one with the Sadies and one with Jill Sobiel. Um,
Wow.
yeah, it's getting it's nothing like you know the real the people that really record solo records, like what Bob Dylan's up to, like 35, and Willie Nelson is, I don't know, it's like more than one a year. You can
Yeah.
look up how many. It's like in the 80s. Willie Nelson has recorded like 80 some studio records.
He is the king of being proficient. He's amazing.
It's insane. It's
So,
insane.
but your output, though, when you look at the band and your solo stuff and collaborating and contributions you've made to things and your acting career, I mean, you have kind of an enormous amount of output yourself. The books.
Yeah, I like applying whatever um, creativity or talent I might have. I think it's worth using, and it's not right to waste it. It's not right to just take it for granted. You gotta honor it, and work on it. Make it as good as you can.
Well, and you do. So you improve every time. So
Oh shucks, now
you
I don't
do.
know about if
You do.
it's just it's just it's just not going totally down in quality. It's not it's not withering as it tries to maintain. But
Uh,
Alphabet Land, that was really exciting, because um, we checked a few boxes, and people say, so why did it take you so long? 27 years to make a record, and 35 since Billy Zoom made a record with you. That's like, we didn't have a record company. we didn't own our masters, which we got all the first 4 records back, and now they're at Fat Possum. So when Fat Possum proved to be good at selling and getting streaming numbers up from for the first 4 records, then we thought, oh fuck, cool, we got a record company, and we like them, and they're not just a lot of lip service and crap like that. And we didn't have a producer, and so it's like, what? We're gonna make songs. We're going to put the time and effort into rehearsing them for what? For nothing. For just like the hell of it. And it's like maybe when you're really young, you do that because that's the way that you can, put a flag in the ground or get people to notice you. And so we're just like, fuck it. Why? Nobody wants to hear new songs. Fine. We'll apply our creativity elsewhere. And Exene writes all the time. And but then we thought, in like the beginning of 2019, we thought, okay, we have a producer, Rob Schnaff, mixed the live in South America when we were out with Pearl Jam, and it sounded great. He got it, cool. He works with Cat Power, and he did a bunch of stuff with Elliott Smith, and so like he's cool. And
Great producer.
yes, and which by the way, I think Cat Power has a new record coming out sometime soon. But anyway, for some time. So we have those boxes checked, and so Exene and I got busy with writing songs, and then we realized in going through the rehearsal that like Billy and DJ were showing up with more and more ideas and really participating in the way the songs were arranged, and I dropped some of my fucking ego about, well, that's the way it goes. If something didn't work, we just change it. Like, let's take out some chords. Let's get some new chords for this. So that was different. So we ended up having like written by Cervenka, Doe, Zoom, and Bone Break. So
Hmm.
that also helps with unity, in the
Right.
band. Yeah.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. I mean, after trying to keep a personal relationship together is one thing, and trying to keep together a band relationship with all these different personalities so that you're all happy,
Yeah.
tens decades later, I was wondering how you kind of actually manage that dynamic.
Oh, it. I don't know. Just I think we like each other generally. There are times when we don't like each other, and then we try to get past that. And you, as you get older, I think you sweat the small stuff less.
Yep.
Um, and at some point, you're more grateful, maybe, and realize, what, we've got a good thing. We do we do love this band, for better or for worse. So just get over yourself.
Well, that's wisdom. Wisdom
Oh shit.
works good. It works
Ah,
good.
yeah. It's not like, I mean, I'm still, like the ego thing. It's still really difficult in personal
Mm,
relationships and in group relationships. Where you can just say, "Oh, well, I guess there's no point in defending myself because then I'm just lying. So I guess I won't do that." But it's such a, it's like such a well worn path that you're like, "Well, I'm driving fine. What do you mean?" And you're like, "Oh, you're such a freaking dumbass." But but then we did. Exene and I took one of those train trips. There were these train trips that Dave Alvin used to sponsor, where you'd get on these old train cars and you would go from Los Angeles to Chicago, and it would take 2 weeks, and it was beautiful. And Exene and I were on there for just a couple days. She read a piece um, that I said that is a song. Please give it to me, and I'll make an X song out of it. And so she did, and then we recorded 4 songs at the beginning of 2019. One was a new one, and then 3 other old ones that we never really got the right good version of, and mix those like in May, or no, mix those by March or something like that. And then by April, she was sending me a bunch of stuff, and I was actually working on a movie which I had some downtime on, and really got serious about it. And so we went into the studio in 2020, like January of 2020, finished it up in 3 weeks, like most what I think a good record should be done.
right.
You know what? Whatever it takes. God bless you, because it's fucking hard. But yes, it is. And but the main thing is to keep in touch with your intuition. Because if you got some little voice that's saying, "Oh, I don't think that's right. I don't think that, I don't think that's the way it ought to go." You have to trust that. You have to listen to that, in life, but also, especially, I think, in creativity. Because every time I've said, you can justify anything, you can talk yourself out of anything, you can give yourself a bunch of reasons why. Oh no, that's fine. But there's some, schmuck record company dude who's saying, "Oh, you should do this. It's going to be great," and then you do it, and it doesn't turn out to get you what you thought it was gonna get you, and you thought, "Fuck, I knew I shouldn't have done that." Now I'm embarrassed. Now I've kind of, it's obvious that I went against my better judgment. I didn't listen to myself. So anyway, we did that. We kept listening to ourselves when we were making the record. We tried to play to our strengths and
Yeah, I'd read somewhere you said with Star Chamber that had like kind of the Ernie Ford influence from 16 Tons or something. And it was funny because I was watching this Norman Lear bio, and I guess he must have written on that show, the Ernie Ford show, and they were
really.
playing that song throughout the Norman Lear bio I watched like last week.
Yeah. Yeah, Exane had that line. You play 16 bars and what do you get? And
That's
then
great.
we didn't have a line. I mean, this is another thing that, usually you have most we in the past, X had pretty much all the lyrics set before we would go into the recording studio. And we didn't for this. We were, playing around with stuff right up to the point that we would record it. And then and we didn't have a line after that. You play 16 bars and what do you get? And then there was a missing line, another town over, and drunker in debt, but there was a missing line. So eventually we came up with, another town no, another hangover and drunker in debt, but another town over and drenched in sweat. Anyway, keep your, we tried to keep ourselves open and, just like make it a process. Don't just go in and set down something, but discover stuff while it was happening.
That's fantastic. I mean, and I love the songs "Free Water and Wine" and like "Strange Life."
Yeah.
Water and Wine, and with just drives, man. It's so good. So
You
it's
know,
John. John, it's so fresh. I swear it. This record sounds like 18-year-olds made it. It's seriously,
we were
but I
waiting.
mean, in a
We
good
had a
way.
we had a lot of built up, like tension.
It worked. It sounds really fresh and of the moment. It was. I think it's fantastic.
I appreciate it. Water and wine. I actually, I mean, that's not a bass line that I haven't played before. It's a pretty standard sort of blues rock, R&B sort of bass line. But I went to see that band Shannon and the Clams, who were awesome, and I'd seen them before up in Oakland, and they were like the best thing on the bill. It was a it was a triple bill with them and Modest Mouse and Black Keys, and I went home and was inspired more by Shannon and the Clams. No offense to Modest Mouse and Black Keys, who I like, but yeah, yeah.
And
Somebody said that there's a if you're having trouble with your output, you should examine your input.
hmm,
And I didn't haven't heard that before, but I should have remembered who said that. But it's true. If you see interesting stuff, if you listen to more interesting stuff, then or go back and have a new, different take on something that you've seen or heard before. It's like if you're having trouble with output, check your input.
right.
Yeah,
I think that makes perfect sense. I like that. I'm going to
yeah,
use that.
yeah. I
So
mean, you can.
yeah, that sounds great. And I mean, you must have at this point in life like a million different influences in life. But when you were starting out and stuff, I mean, who like really when you were young, like who like made it like I got to go down this path? It's like a disease, a virus. Not to pun on today, but I've got to go down this path and pursue music. And who are the guys that really are women that really I don't
Oh,
know
I think,
set you off?
yeah, I think when I was, I was very fortunate in the era that I grew up. Um, so as a young as a preteen and or no, as a tween and teenager, like I was 15 or so when you know the Doors and Jimi Hendrix and Janis Joplin and all the kind of psychedelic music started or was available. And I'd grown up with the Beatles and Rolling Stones and Animals and all that stuff. And before that, when I was a kid, I listened to folk music because that's what kids were given. You got little 10-inch records with Leadbelly and Woody Guthrie and things like that. Um, but it was the psychedelic kind of stuff that really I thought, oh, this is I got to try to do this. And then there were lots of other influences that came after that, but that was the
Right. And you grew up in Illinois? Is that where you were raised?
no Baltimore pretty
Or
much.
no,
I mean,
Baltimore.
yeah, I was born in Illinois, went to Tennessee for 4 years, Wisconsin for 3 years, I think. But by second grade, third grade, I was in Baltimore. Stayed there until I moved to LA in '76.
Mm.
Yeah.
And what sparked that? I mean, what made you kind of say, "I'm going to the West Coast. I'm out of here."
I just had had enough. I mean, but I love the attitude, and I'm always grateful for having that sarcastic slant, which you have to have in Baltimore. It's a prerequisite, and I've learned a lot. I you know was acquainted, sort of friends with John Waters and a few of the people that he worked with just before I left. But my parents moved up to Brooklyn, so I had a free place to stay in New York, and I had been to CBGB's and Max's and seen like the Heartbreakers and um Talking Heads and a couple other bands. Um, but I hated the East Coast by that point. It was like enough with this shitty weather and nasty attitude, like, especially if you wanted to try to do something different. In Baltimore, it was, oh, somebody tried to do that and it failed, so you can't do that. It's like, what? Why? Stop it. And on the West Coast, it's like anything goes.
So there were those conventions that are kind of more apt on the East Coast.
Yeah, and you get. I think when you grow up in a place, you start getting haunted by ghosts. It's like you walk down the same streets, and But I'm really grateful for growing up. Like from my late teens, early 20s, going into Baltimore City down to Fells Point, which was a really kind of Wild West place. There were bars in in Fells Point, which is right down by the docks. You would have a freighter who was unloading right next to the bar you were drinking at. And there were places that were just houses and there was no sign and you just knew that there was there was a bar and they just would set up a bar in a front room. They just put up like a couple of big high tables and that was the bar. It was like it was lawless. It was kind
Yeah.
of like it was, like Hoboken used to be.
Mm.
Um, where there was you go down and there's a bar. It's there's four. There's a there's an intersection where there's three bars on the corners. And it's like the next one and the next one. And every one of them had like three or four bars on the corners. Anyway, yeah. So
That's awesome. Is there? I have to ask. Was there a good John Waters story in there?
I went to a couple of Christmas parties which were just sort of. I mean, they were big. There were maybe 100 people in a loft, but we were so enamored with like Mary Vivian Pierce and Divine would come around, not in drag, but just as Glenn, and we were just, oh my God, these are movie stars because we go to see Desperate Living and Female Trouble and Pink Flamingos and Multiple Maniacs and all the early stuff. But John was always very he drank at a bar that I used to play at, and we would sit and chat about Tennessee Williams, and that was refreshing.
Mm,
And he's a very personable, one of the best conversationalists ever. And
I can
yeah,
only imagine.
yeah.
So, was there music in your house when you were growing up? I mean, were you self-taught? Did you just pick up a guitar at some point? What was the
Uh,
environment like?
well, my dad played classical piano, and my mom sang. She, sang opera in college, but never really pursued it. She was a homemaker, and then she went to. They were librarians. My dad was a librarian, and my mom was a school teacher, and then she um, took a break while we were little kids and went back to be a school librarian, high school librarian. Yeah, they were uh, they were encouraging to a degree. They loved me. That was the main thing. They were they were affectionate towards me and my brother, and I know a lot of people who didn't have that, and it's as time goes on, you have to people struggle with that stuff, and I'm really grateful for that. I knew I was cared for.
Awesome.
Um, yeah, yeah, it
Are
was
they
good.
still
But
around?
no, they've been gone for years and years. But yeah, there was definitely music. They didn't like rock and roll particularly, but they begrudgingly they let me and my friends practice in the basement, which we had a kind of finished basement, and it was kind of our clubhouse, and we'd drink beer and get high and stuff like that. And they would turn a blind eye to it and pretend they didn't know, but I think they. But in those days, in the like late '60s, it was questionable, like how much people knew because it was all so different.
Right. Yep, it was. And so you guys, so you get to LA, you form a band. I'm not going to get, I think the history of that's been told.
Yes.
I'm not going to get too into that. The only questions I kind of have around all the early records was like some of the producer choices. Like, how did you guys meet like Ray Manzarek?
Ray came to see us at the Whiskey, and I think we were opening for Levi and the Rock Cats. I'm pretty sure we were, and he had read an article in the LA Reader. It was called "Sounds Like Murder" by a friend, Chris Morris,
Hmm.
and uh, he just was attracted to the poetry in in the article. It quoted some lyrics for Johnny Hit and Run Pauline, and it also had some stuff for the Alley Cats and I think the Plugs. Anyway, I mean, all the journalists back then, um, Christine McKenna, Chris, and Slash Magazine were basically saying, "Look, there's a lot of shit going on in your city. Go out to small clubs, and you will find somebody that speaks to you. So just do it. Do yourself a favor and do that." And yeah, so he saw us that night, and I wish I remember actually meeting him for the first time, but I don't.
Mm.
We were doing a version of Soul Kitchen, and his wife Dorothy said, "Hey Ray, they're playing your song." He's because we were playing it twice as fast,
Right.
and he didn't even recognize it, so she could she could hear it. She could hear it before he could. But I do remember him coming to a rehearsal that we set up afterward, and I was so nervous. Oh my god, we played probably 7 or 8 songs, and he said, "Yeah, this is great. Let's do something." And he tried to get some meetings with major record companies, and they all told us to fuck off. And we had a lawyer who was a manager, a manager who was a lawyer, and we got a bunch of rejection notices. And then Bob Biggs from Slash said had only put out a couple of singles and the Germs record, and he said, "We'd love to do it, and we'll give you $10,000 to make a record." And the second record, you're gonna have $20,000. And we thought, "Oh my god,
Wow.
wow, Ma, we made it." uh, but I think you should have a budget of 15,000 and hopefully you'll sell 15,000 records
Right.
nowadays.
And how far did that go back then, John? I mean, could you record for 3 weeks with $10,000 or 2 weeks?
It was more like 2.5, yeah, but we mixed and recorded and mixed in 2.5 weeks because we knew the songs. I mean, we've been playing some of these songs since '77, so 77, 78, and the end of '79 or middle of '79 is when we recorded it. So we knew the songs. It was Ray who helped us decide the songs to record. We put some other songs later on Wild Gift. Songs like "We're Desperate" and "I'm Coming Over" and "Adult Books" and a few others I can't remember. Maybe "When Our Love Passed Out on the Couch." But he picked ones that were kind of, I don't know, fit together better, more darker, maybe
Mm.
more rock, less roots. Yeah, it
So he
was.
contributed kind of thematically, kind of the direction you guys were
Oh,
heading.
totally. And he didn't. There's a lot of producers which they know who they are. He says in an indicting tone,
Dun dun
who
dun.
who feel like they've got to make suggestions in order to prove that they're doing their job. And I don't think that's really. I mean, if someone is uh, unsure and someone is doesn't know what they want, then absolutely step in. Or if someone says, you know what, I want your sound, give me your sound, great. There's a lot of producers who just sort of put their stamp on things to prove that they're doing something, and I've been guilty of that um, on my own or working with other people on occasion. But I realize that's a bad idea. You just got to listen to what's happening and maybe don't change it because it's quirky, and don't even it out. And Ray was really good about that. He just wanted to capture a good performance, get good sounds, set up a vibe, make it happen. Don't overthink it. Don't reinvent it. It's working. Obviously, you have to leave things alone if they're working. But there's plenty of people, even like that Bob Dylan Chronicles when he's talking about Daniel Lanois, and Daniel Lanois makes it so that Bob doesn't even know if the songs are any good. He's like he's all upside down
Mm.
and mixed up. Like, dude, you're Bob fucking Dylan. Tell this other guy to take a hike. No, it's really touching. It's really touching to because we all suffer from you know insecurity at times. But yeah, Ray was great. I still miss him from time to time.
Mm.
No doubt about it.
And another door connection, you have Robbie Krieger playing on the new record on the
Yes.
song.
Yeah. Yeah. He called. He left a message on. We have stayed in touch uh, with Exene and I and John Densmore because we did a couple of um, songs with the like tribute nights. One up in Seattle and one in L.A. and where I got to sing like "Riders on the Storm" and Exene sang part of Roadhouse Blues. And anyway, Robbie Krieger left a message on my machine on my phone and um, long rambling message about I don't know if you got the passes for the photographer and like what the fuck is going on here? You got the wrong John. And it turns out that it was like somebody from their management company. But I called him back and he said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "We just finished a record." And he goes, "Oh, that's cool. I should come down and play slide." I was like, "What?" Yeah. So he did on that last song, which turned out to be prophetic.
Fantastic. So, and how was like for you? I mean, because I know you're kind of into the intimate thing. When you toured with Pearl Jam, like in South America, I mean, what was that experience like for you to play? I imagine very large audiences.
Yeah. It's all soccer stadiums. South America is kind of a world gone right in that the Ramones were huge towards the last 5 years of their career in South
Mm.
America, and I think Pearl Jam and a lot of other bands benefit from that because they just get it. Yeah, playing soccer stadiums in Sao Paulo, we played 2 nights and they sold out uh, 70,000 seats. Like as the promoter, when do you say, "Dude, let's put up a second night for sale"? It's like, oh my god! But there were not 70,000 people when we played.
Mm.
But it was the best way you could ever see South America in the Pearl Jam bubble. Are you fucking kidding me? There was one time that we were in like the black Escalades and had a police uh, escort, like
Yep.
going 60 miles an hour with like 4 feet in front of the car in front of you, like just hurtling along, and these like cops on motorcycles clearing the way, and it's like, oh my god, this is like being a dignitary. It's like, so I
You
would really,
are.
no, no, we're not. I'm glad we're not.
Had you
No,
been to South America before? No, was that like a first
oh hell
run
no,
down there?
no, no, no. But my partner and I said, okay, we're gonna go, and the band can just. But she's helpful, and she's a good person, so it was fine. And so we got to experience that, and would get up early every morning and go walking around and see stuff. It was incredible, and eventually, like by the fourth or fifth show, people were showing up a little bit earlier, and in Chile, they were like singing along with Nausea. They were da 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 da, and you could actually audibly hear it from the audience.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that was kind of like,
Gosh,
whoa, that's cool. Damn.
that is awesome. So you have this interesting life. That's part of it right there, doing all this touring stuff. And I mean, do you have a preference? I mean, do you prefer kind of being like a solo guy? I'm going to write my record. That's more fun for me. Or is kind of being out playing live a big part, or is it both?
Oh, I think whatever you're not doing, you think, God, if I could only be doing that.
It's the
Um,
truth, brother. That's the truth.
so it's a good reminder to enjoy what you got while you're doing it. Um, but if there's anything that I think you're fortunate to have is to have diversity, to have options and things like that, so you don't feel as though you're stuck in a grind. But maybe the grind is good. Maybe it's a great grind. I do fear for you know changes in the way that our life has changed. I definitely have some serious trepidations. I mean, I have to reassure myself that X hasn't played its last concert.
Mm.
You know,
And what is that? What is that? What's Go a little deeper with that.
well, in those dark moments, Billy is no spring chicken. Neither am I. And what if we don't play next year? What if we don't play the year after that? Well, maybe we're going to be like, thank God we're we're relatively healthy. But Billy's had two bouts with cancer, and now we're sitting on our hands for 8 months. Since March. Well, I don't think we actually played. The last time we were together was as we were mixing Alphabet Land, which was the 13th of May, and or maybe the 12th of May, or March, not May, March. 12th of March, we were mixing. And that was another cool thing is that is Fat Possum said, okay, the record's mastered. Let's put it out. And the record was mastered like the 10th of April, and we put it out on the 22nd. You know, put it out on Bandcamp, and they said, just keep the money, and pay back the recording fund. And we did. I mean, pretty sure this record's going to go into the black, even without selling, tens of thousands. But that's another story. I think the last show we played was like in December of 2019, and that's hard. That's hard to kind of wrap your head around. It's like, holy shit, what if I played my last show with this band that I has been a part of my identity? And but we had to kind of go through that back in the late '80s, early '90s, where we took a year or two off. But this is different because we feel as though we have something to say and something to play for people and things like that. It's I don't know, it's like I said, it's up and down. And you can go up and down very quickly, but you got to try to fight against it.
And how do you like how did the acting thing happen in your life? How did you get into that? what started that? I
Oh,
mean, how do
yeah, there
you
was
view that in as part of your career?
I'm a little more mercenary. Like, I wanna know how much I'm gonna get paid. As Robert Mitchum used to say, or I read somewhere, he said, "At this point in my career, I just wanna know how much do I get paid, what are the hours, and how much do I have to fall down? And and do I get a do I get a hotel room with a view?" I'm not that
Those
mercenary,
are
but
good guidelines.
he's my hero. He's my acting hero. Uh, I got asked to Allison Anders. I give her all the credit or blame. She was doing, Border Radio and had Chris D from the Flesh Eaters as the lead character and had a couple other people from the music scene acting in it, and she asked me if I would play this role of Dean, who was, like, one of the 3 or 4 lead characters, and it was great. It was just, I could tell that and she had Allison had just worked on Paris, Texas, and so she had general ideas of how a scene should go, but she didn't actually have all the dialogue. And she figured, well, like, well, worked for Vim Vendors on Paris, Texas, so it'll work with these guys. And it's like, yeah, we're not Harry Dean or Nastasia Kinski. No, it was sometimes it was great, and it actually is a pretty good movie. But I give her all the credit and,
That's
for getting
awesome.
me for showing me that it can be rewarding, and it's rewarding in a more internal, quieter, like, personally if the scene worked, and you just hope that somebody captured it on film, which you can tell. You get a kind of feeling. You get that feeling of being transported and that you kind of, embodied your character and it all felt real.
Is it a little less immediate for you though, in a way, because it's got to be put together and editing's a big part. And when you do music, you can just, hey, we're going in the studio. We're gonna have a song by the time we're done. We'll know what it is. We'll know how it
Yeah.
sounds. It's
Well,
a little different timeline.
yes, and I haven't really been invested in the final product. I just kind of go in and do my thing, do the very best I can. I take it really, really seriously, do as much research, and then try to, you know, put all that aside and just be the person. But then when I'm done, I just kind of walk away and say, "Okay, you, I did the best I could." Now, the most recent thing that I did was a remake of DOA, the Edmund O'Brien film noir movie, and I played the lead guy in that. And it was all done by a friend of mine, Kurt St. Thomas.
I know, Kurt.
Oh, do you? Yeah,
Oh yes.
yeah. We did it down in St. Augustine and shot it in black and white, and it looks really great. And I hope I hope and pray that we can get it finished at some point because it's he's kind of doing it on a shoestring budget. But that I'm more
That's
invested
awesome.
that I'm more invested in, and it is frustrating because it's just hard. But music is you have a lot more control, and that's fine. But releasing the control is good too. Just go in and do your thing. It's like in the Flesh Eaters, I get to play with the Flesh Eaters now and then, and I'm just the bass player, and that's great. I don't have to front the band. I don't have to. I just show up and play good. That's rewarding.
I'm sure that is. Is there a during your time, with the all the auditioning that goes on and stuff, was there something that you really wanted to do that you didn't get as an actor?
Yeah. I felt like it's. um, I can't. Nothing's coming to mind, but I felt as though when I got turned down, it was for a reason,
Mm,
and I just, you know, that's also part of the letting go, because at the very beginning, um, you're second guessing yourself, like, oh, I should have done this during the audition. I should have done that, and then after you go through that a dozen times, then you realize you just got to walk out of that audition and just say, "Cool." They either got it or I did it, and they saw it or not. I think the last thing that I went up for because I kind of about 10 years ago refused to audition
right.
unless it was something really big, And I went in and auditioned for that Ford versus Ferrari for the second guy.
Well, you'd been great in that.
It was kind of their tech, their and it's a I should know the actor's name. You've seen him quite a bit. Real thin, but he did a great job. So there was a reason.
So
There's
the
been a
no
lot of
regrets thing works well. Move on.
yes. Oh yeah. You have to. Otherwise, and regret is a really destructive force.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's dangerous, man.
Yeah, can't do that. And there are, things that there's some regrets that I have in sort of my relationship with Exene, which I go into in the one of those books, the punk rock books. But you can't dwell on it. And yeah, I wish we wouldn't have tried to fit in, and I wish we wouldn't have stopped working with Ray, but we did, and life goes on, and one door closes, and etc. Got to make the best of it.
Well, that's a good segue as we kind of close this out. I wanted to ask you about both, being an author of two books,
Yeah.
um, one Under the Big Black Sun and the other More Fun in the New World. Is that it? Did I get the title right?
Yeah, we we took both titles from the both titles from X Records. I wanted I wanted to call the first book The Have Nots, which is also a X title, and they said, "Oh no, we can't call it that. It might end up in the economics section." And I thought, "Oh my god, publishing is weird."
How is that
Uh,
possible?
I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, I kind of went. I got had to. I went into it. Got dragged. I don't know if I was kicking and screaming, but I got dragged into it. My friend Tom DeSavia kept saying, "You should write a book," and it sounded like way too much work, and like something that you're supposed to do when you're like retired from everything else. And I'm not a real raconteur. I'll tell stories now and then, but it's not like I hold forth all the time and stuff. So, but the decision to use other people to tell the story was was a that was the thing that I kind of thought of and realized that okay, this is a way that it can be bigger and I don't have to do all the work, and um, it'll tell a broader story.
Did Tom work with you on both, or did you do the second one alone?
No, we worked on uh, both of them together, and the first one went from 77 to 82. Second one went 82 to 87. The second one was more his era because he was a little older and was enamored with the like roots um, music scene, Lone Justice, Rank and File, etc. So that was really his scene, and that was what was kind of the new part of. Well, there were a lot of different things, but that was new to the L.A. rock scene.
Right. I mean, those books did fairly well, right? They well
Yeah,
received, yeah.
yeah. I mean, they sold well. We actually, went into the black a little bit, which is supposedly pretty rare. But it's the first,
Congratulations.
yeah, it was the first time that the L.A. punk rock scene got I think a legit. Um, it was time, as Tom likes to say, it became the wine and cheese discussion. Like we got onto NPR and stuff like that. Suddenly, LA punk rock. They had already talked about New York and London enough, and it's like, oh my God, there's this whole new thing. Darling? Did you hear that there was a punk rock scene in Los Angeles? Anyway, but we worked pretty hard to find the people to get them to write in their own voice. Jane Weedland, Dave Alvin, Henry Rollins, um, Pleasant Gaiman, a lot of people who have been there, and some contributed to both both books. We worked hard to give people the sense of you are there. We
Mm.
as if everybody wants to know what it was like to be in a scene, and that was a very tight and short-lived scene. And so I hope that there's more to follow. I haven't heard of it yet, but I think there's definitely an LA hardcore book. I think there could be a great Los Angeles ska, and like there was a two tone kind of thing that was going on with the undertones. or Untouchables, and bands like that. There's definitely a book that should be written about East LA punk rock and East LA music. But anyway, it was rewarding to feel like it got history got put down, and they'll have a harder time revising it as time goes on.
Right. Oh, well, I always feel better when it's kind of firsthand. I don't know.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm not bagging on people that are writers, but I don't like the observational as much as I like the people that are just down in the dirt doing it. I love
Yes,
that point of view,
yes, yeah.
and you
Um,
accomplished it.
well, we gave people prompts. Everybody had a subject we felt that they were the expert in, and that's why we would give them, here, write about this. and and we also encouraged everyone to paint the picture, because Los Angeles was a or is, it's a really weird, cool, um, enigmatic, because it's hard to kind of capture it. Uh, but that that kind of vibe was what brought me to LA. I read Raymond Chandler and Nathaniel West and people like that, and I thought, yeah, I want to go see that.
Mm. Well, and you think about even during your time, right? The different what you were just kind of saying. I mean, the different music scenes going on. I mean, just totally different from each other. Whether
Yeah.
it's the metal stuff that was going on simultaneously. I mean, it's crazy how much was going on in the city,
Yes. Yes. And I mean, it still is. It just hasn't gotten publicized.
right?
There's parts that have, but it takes time.
Yep,
Takes time to
it
get
does.
it out there.
All right, one last question before I let you loose. I mean, is there anything great you're listening to right now that you kind of want to share musically?
Yeah. We toured with a band called Skating Polly, and they haven't put anything out in the last like year, but they're totally worth listening to. Skating Polly, Particle Kid, who's uh, a friend of mine. I did a split single with him. It's his name is Micah Nelson, but he goes by Particle Kid. He's Willie Nelson's son.
Okay.
And Sunny War, who is in Venice. She's got a really terrific way of playing guitar, kind of like Elizabeth Cotton does that, thumb and forefinger.
Hmm.
Um, actually, the Psychedelic Furs new record is kick ass.
I haven't listened to it yet. I got to get into it this weekend.
Oh my god, it's so fucking good.
I've been
And I
listening to yours. So,
oh,
okay.
thank you very much. It is so good. And but Skating Polly it's like, what if Kurt Cobain and Exene had some kids? Because it's two sisters and a brother, and they I think they put out their 10th record, and they're like 20 and 24, the sisters who
Holy
are the main
cow.
songwriters. Yeah. Exene produced a record of theirs like years ago when they were like 10 and 13. And it was still like awesome. It was so crazy. Crazy good.
Okay, I got to go
Lucinda
find
Williams,
them too then.
yeah. Lucinda Williams's record is really good. Of course, Bob Dylan's records kind of like, if you want to experience the past, present, and future at the same time, you can do that. Um, but but the Psych Furs, I wasn't a huge fan of theirs at the beginning. We toured with them in 2019, and I thought, oh, these guys are really dark. And Richard is one of the
Mm.
best frontmen.
Oh,
I mean, he's so
dude.
engaging, and he doesn't get like repetitive, and he doesn't have a shtick. And this is a great record. So
That voice of his, oh, it kills me. So,
I know.
kills me. Well, my friend, listen, I'm so happy to hear your voice. I'm happy to catch up with you. Anyone that's listening, Alphabet Land is a remarkable piece of work, and it's a really beautiful record. And you got to listen to this record.
That's
Um,
right. That's right. Listen to Nick Terzo. He knows his records.
I don't like much. I'm like Mikey, man. I don't like much. This record is damn good. So,
I appreciate it.
and
Yeah.
I appreciate your friendship, and I'm really grateful you did this with me today. So, thank you, and stay healthy.
Yes, I will if you will. Let's make a deal and see each other down the road.
Let's do it.
All right, man.
Thanks, John.
All right, you're welcome.
Well, that's our show this week. I hope you enjoyed it and maybe even learned a little something. To follow what's going on with this podcast, you can go to theradicalpod.com. Theradicalpod.com. You'll find show notes and past episodes and even a little swag there if you want a t-shirt or a hat. Also, I would be honored if you'd subscribe at Apple or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. Till next week.